Why are gay white men no longer considered oppressed? Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and it was about 3 years ago when I first really began noticing that gay white men were starting to be attacked very specifically and repeatedly by the left. As if not only was it no longer a particular concern to make us happy, but it also became as if we should now sacrifice our own comfort and well being to help advocate for the best interests of others' groups, like women, trans, and black people. And then all of the sudden, Muslims as well. I know I've heard of intersectionality. If you want to watch my video on it, you can't. But in order to really wrap one's head around why this really probably happened, you first need to keep in mind that this wasn't about any goal long term beyond getting votes for the Democratic Party, and all of this narrative was just spawned by way of professional grievance mongers who were hired during the Obama administration to find problems even when there might not have been any, because it was literally their job to find bigotry. Microaggressions became a thing, so did mansplaining and manspreading. It's been said a million times, but left-wing activists have a drastic supply and demand problem in terms of bigotry, because for so many of them, their careers are dependent upon pointing their fingers at not just discrimination, but discrimination that they can say stems entirely from white straight men. That said, over the past 5 years, non-coincidentally, right after Obama signed into law the bill that nullified the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948, thereby legalizing the usage of propaganda on the American masses, there has been a very clear mammoth budget put into racially focused activist groups and media. And an even bigger budget was put towards feminism, even though discrimination against women in the West is at an all-time low and has been since late last century, when young women and girls began surpassing men and boys at every level of education in the West, to name just one of countless instances in life where females are faring far better than males. That all said, aside from transgender issues being focused on a whole bunch in media, almost exclusively being spoken about under the thumb of feminist-led advocacy organizations, similar to the way racially based activism was also controlled by feminists this decade, one would have to ask a very simple question. Aside from transgender issues being politicized, what did you ever hear about the LGBT community? What about the gay dudes? I mean, black people were told that their lived experiences give them all-encompassing knowledge into all racial issues. Trans people were told that they could cuss out their cisgender gay and lesbian friends for using the word tranny, and women were told that they can't let their male friends interrupt them or disagree with them online without it being sexist discrimination. But while this was going on, where was all of the gay propaganda? When was the last time you heard a gay guy complain about a microaggression committed against him for being gay? I know that there was a tiny bit of gay male social justice blogging, but the overall message over recent years was that gay white men, in particular, are no longer an oppressed minority. Therefore, we had better do what the women, trans people, and racial minorities in our lives tell us. If not, we are misogynist, racist, transphobes. And of course, that didn't work entirely. A lot of gay guys told these people to go to hell, which is why this is the first time in my life where a sizable population of right-wing gays seem to be coming out of the closet. So why did this narrative pan out that way? Why were gay white men left out of this particular incarnation of the Oppression Olympics, which ran its course during Obama's second term? Truthfully, my honest opinion is that the Oppression Olympics was basically all directly politically funded, and they thought that they had the gay vote in the bag after legalizing gay marriage. Also, They knew gay men can never really fit into feminism if people really know anything about feminist theory, so they had to pressure us into subservience. There's nothing less feminist, after all, than a man who loves other men. Think of it this way. We know that it was made legal in 2012 for the United States government to pump money into promoting various social issues as civil rights causes, regardless of how little of a basis in reality these issues really had. The US government literally paid blogs to write articles about manspreading. It was perfectly legal. And why exactly did everyday feminism lose all its money within months of Trump coming into office? Do the math. Think about it. We know that people were responding well to having a black president because they re-elected Obama, despite him bailing out the big banks and inspiring the Occupy Wall Street protests in 2011. Exit polling data showed that a lot of people voted for him a second time mainly because he was black. Truthfully, that was a large part of the reason that I did. Therefore, the federal government knew that pumping money into Black Lives Matter and related things in media was a great way to make citizens feel like they were contributing to productive activism by changing their Facebook default photo to a Black Lives Matter logo. Lie to the population and tell them that the economy is doing all right. Perfectly legal, and tell them to care about the potential hidden racism coming from their own social spheres above even investigating into what Obama was actually doing in office. He's black, after all. Not liking the black president is a microaggression in itself. With that manipulative tactic in mind, they thought that they could do the same thing that they did with racial issues while Obama was in office, but instead do it with Hillary Clinton in 2016 by way of making everything in media about women's issues. But that was pretty awkward because very few people were talking about women's issues by early this decade because, well, it's not like there is a female suicide epidemic like is going on with male suicide, where males compose about 78% of all suicides in the West. Also, since most hardcore feminists tend to also be lesbians, the feminist activist masses were largely focused on gay marriage as their primary fight, as opposed to feminist issues. I honestly think that one of the main reasons nobody ever really talked about feminism commonly, up until about 2012 or so, was because the push for homosexual marriage was an organic one that came from the LGBT community itself and distracted all the lesbians. And it had been going on for many years, so when homosexual marriage finally became nationally recognized just a few years ago during the Obama administration, I legitimately just think that the Democratic Party figured that they had satisfied the LGBT demographic. I'm sure there was a definite feeling of, we gave you gay dudes what you wanted from us. And in a lot of ways, I think that it definitely did work on a lot of gay guys. But of course, at the same time, nobody likes being taken for granted and certainly not guilted into political allegiances. After gay marriage passed, the Democratic Party felt that they needed to keep up with the race baiting for many reasons, mainly because it had a track record of being effective as a distraction, and of course, they also fed money into the grandly dishonest propaganda campaign that I call fourth wave feminism, which, remember, was often one and the same with the race baiting. I do not believe it was an accident that basically every supposedly anti-racist leader this decade was also a feminist. Gay white men were left out of all of this, of course, but they figured at the Democratic Party that this didn't matter because gay white men had gotten what all of the gay white male activists had been fighting for: marriage equality. I mean, in terms of gay white men and Hillary Clinton, if you're a gay white guy, didn't you feel like they were asking us to defend the indefensible in the way that she was just royally awful? Meanwhile, they weren't even really trying very hard to pretend that there was anything in it for us. Huh? They figured that instead of even trying to appeal to the gay white male demographic during this election, they'd instead use the same guilting tactics that they tend to use on straight white men, telling us that we have white privilege, male privilege, then that we are racists for our dating preferences, and that we abandoned our sisters and queer trans people of color once gay white men got all of our rights. We were evil, privileged white men, of course, unless we worshipped the gods of intersectional feminism. Obviously, it was a monumentally stupid idea because there's plenty of shitty things about being a gay white man, even to this day, that are specific to being gay, which were being ignored. And it was also stupid because guilting people into voting for you has probably not worked too often. But more than that, it's also really fucking idiotic to tell a drastic minority that they don't face discrimination anymore based on their minority status, because reasons, and that because this minority is supposedly no longer oppressed, they need to follow the orders of people who are more oppressed than them, because victims of life supposedly know more about politics and social issues than non-victims, because, again, reasons. First off, yes, gay white men do suffer from discrimination. And second, fuck off, asshole. I was supposed to be your ally, not your bitch. So if you've noticed that gay white men have been being spoken about very poorly by the left these past few years, that's why I think it happened. But truthfully, at this point, I'm glad it happened because it finally made me realize, as an individual, that the Democratic Party does not necessarily care about the people it claims to speak for, but rather, it cares about itself. I didn't become a Republican, and I won't say I'll absolutely never vote for a Democrat in the future, but I will say that with a political party that treated gay men in the 2016 election campaign not unlike a shitty college-aged boyfriend with a personality disorder, the Democratic Party seriously needs a drastic gutting of the party for me to even ever consider voting for them again, ever. Drop me a comment, hit the bell button so you don't get unsubscribed from my channel, and stay tuned.